Good morning, ladies, and welcome to our weekly Facebook Live Q&A on menopause. Today's topic is medication for menopause. But before we get started, again, I always want to remind you to invite your friends to our Facebook group and tell them it's a wonderful community of women that are here to support each other to get the answers that we've all been seeking to help go through menopause and to share some of our own experiences that other women could benefit from. So as a pharmacist, I thought today would be great to talk about medication that may be an option for us if we're premenopausal or we are in menopause. As you probably know, I'm not a medication person, but I'm not judging. I know women feel good on some of these medications, but some of them don't, though. You know, let's face it, every drug has a side effect, and that's just the way it is. There's no two ways about that. We can't change that. It is a choice, though, and sometimes women just get tired of struggling and really going through some horrific symptoms, not sleeping, maybe struggling with hot flashes, irritability, mood swings. We just don't feel like ourselves, and we just crave to be ourselves again so badly and to get that control back. So one of the medications that surprisingly is still actually available on the market is Premarin. Now, I've been a pharmacist for over 30 years, and Premarin, in my early part of my career in the early 90s, was a highly dispensed medication. And often it was, put together with Provera, which was supposed to be a type of progesterone that, would combine with the estrogen. They need to be tagged together often. Although, at one point there was a women's health study that came out to talk about the side effects of Premarin and Provera. And for a long time, maybe about 5 years or so, that drug was blacklisted basically by Health Canada, and it wasn't dispensed. However, it never went off the market, and eventually, we kind of ease up a bit. We make excuses for that study, and then we start using it again. What was really interesting about that study, though, and what came out is women didn't even realize that that Premarin was actually made from the urine of a pregnant mare. And they really, didn't think about where it came from. They just knew that, to a degree, it was helping them to feel better. But when you think of the source, then you think about why the side effects are there. So the good thing with Premarin is actually 50%, it has so many estrogens in it, and 50% of those are actually bioidentical. The problem is the other 50%. And the other 50% is what created a lot of the side effects, which were horrific for us, including a risk of breast cancer. So unfortunately, our body does not do well, with metabolites and chemicals and synthetic products that it doesn't recognize as its own. So that's where a lot of the dangerous side effects came from Premarin, was the other 50% of that drug that was actually not a bioidentical estrogen. And our body just doesn't recognize that, and it causes, some drastic effects on us. And the other issue was combining it with Provera. So the good thing with that study, interesting enough for me too as a pharmacist, is it came out to say that Provera, which was a synthetic progesterone, was actually, had more horrific side effects than Premarin did, and it was actually more of the culprit for those side effects than we thought. We thought it was all, the estrogen, basically from a horse that was in Premarin that we were utilizing. So I know a lot of women, my mom included, in her generation, Premarin and Provera was the drug of choice. It still is used, unfortunately. I just really want women to be cautious. I'm not judging. I'm just saying there are, a lot of side effects associated with Premarin and Provera. And if drugs, medication is your go-to when it comes to working through menopause, that's fine. I'm just suggesting that you find there are some safer options. But just remember, a drug is a drug is a drug. Okay, and even when I was working with bioidentical hormones in cream form, although I always felt they were safe, at the end of the day, it is a drug, and there's always a potential for side effects. So if my choice was medication, Premarin and Provera definitely would never be on my list at all. It's just too dangerous. The next drug I thought would be great to talk about is birth control. So I need to tell you an interesting story. When I first became a pharmacist, this was the guidelines that no woman over 35 would be on birth control because of the danger of side effects. And again, eventually, like Premarin and Provera, those boundaries started to get pushed, and then we would see women in their 40s and 50s on birth control. And obviously not for the reason of birth control, but they were working with their doctor to attempt to overcome the symptoms of premenopause and menopause. So now I want to speak to a client of mine, and I've heard these stories before, but I really want to share it with you. At 49 years old, she was struggling with very heavy cycles, which is common, but she just couldn't handle it anymore. So her doctor gave her some choices, and one of those choices was to go into birth control. And thinking that her body would, be okay with that, because, of course she'd been on birth control years before that, she decided to go on birth control. And after about 6 months or so, she just couldn't handle it, the side effects. And some of those side effects persisted for a long time, even though she was off the birth control, until she came to me and we did a saliva test and she started taking supplements. For example, she just couldn't release the unwanted weight and the water retention and the bloating that she had. So the issue with birth control when you get older is that your body just doesn't accept that kind of treatment. You're at higher risk of side effects, of course. And you can't stay on it forever. So it actually is a pretty short-term solution. And then after that, you're left with the side effects. The problem with birth control at that age is it actually starts to deplete our own natural hormone levels. Any drug. When your body accepts that drug, if you're giving it a combination of an estrogen and a progesterone, then your own natural levels of those hormones are going to start to deplete itself. That's just how science works, right? When you take more estrogen in, your body produces less. When you take, chemical progesterone in, your body produces less. That's how it offsets itself. That's the biofeedback mechanism. So actually what you're doing is you're actually pushing yourself into menopause earlier. And that's maybe not the biggest issue, but it can be, because again, what happens when you come off of that and now you're suddenly in menopause and you're not prepared for that, and you still have that carry forward and overlap of side effects that you don't know what to do with. Of course, at that point, to me, your best choice is always going to be supplements, and supplements that are tailored to your own chemistry. But again, women don't know that. So they may come off birth control and have nothing else to back them up. They may come off Premarin and Provera, which is awesome, thank goodness they are able to reach that decision. But the problem now is, what's their go-to? And your doctor is not going to know what to offer you. Of course, it's not their fault, but they're used to medication. So in hindsight, my client that did the birth control, which she was offered, which I think is a good choice, is she had an ablation. And as soon as she had the ablation, the heavy bleeding stopped. Of course, it's not dealing with all the symptoms that you may struggle with, but definitely it will get rid of the heavy bleeding, and I think it's a very safe option for us to have the ablation and not to use the medication. So birth control, not our best choice. I've seen even young women if they've been on birth control long term in their 30s, what's going to happen? Well, their hormones are depleted to a degree. Their body thinks they're going into menopause, and they may struggle to have children, which is kind of sad. But back to us, in your 40s and 50s, birth control is not your safest option. So I'm just encouraging you to find another go-to, and definitely natural supplements can work amazing. They just need to be in the right combination. And the last drug I want to talk about, and again, I don't think this one is horrific by any means, but again, there is an offset to it, and that is having an IUD. And an IUD will often is progesterone, which will definitely help with your symptoms, help with your heavy cycles. Again, the issue is it's only a 5-year window, and once that window is up and it has to get removed, and you're at an age where you're not going to be using that anymore, how are you going to balance your hormones? So now you're combining the fact that you've been on an IUD for 5 years, you're also in menopause now, so there's a couple factors going on for you. So again, the IUD is not horrific, just be prepared, like just figure out what your plan is going to be, almost like retirement. When you retire that IUD, what are you going to use now? You know, I'm just encouraging you to always have that backup plan. You know, plan A was the IUD, what is plan B now? Because if you're in your 50s, you still got a long way to go. And you want to be healthy, you want to feel good, and you just want to enjoy life, embrace life, your children, your grandchildren, and I think in order to do that, we need a backup plan. So if your backup plan is supplements, that's awesome. Just, you know, do your best to get properly tested. Your doctor will not do that testing for you. When you get that combination of natural supplements, it's such a wow factor on your body. You will be just so pleasantly surprised with the results. So today's topic was medication during premenopause and menopause. Again, never judging. I just want you to have all the facts before you make those decisions for yourself that can affect your health. Thanks for being with us today. Again, really invite your friends. It's a great group. I hope you're getting awesome information. Please don't be shy. Start to post for me. Reach out to me with questions. And we'll see you next week on our weekly Q&A.